Hello everybody and welcome to a blind commentary of Overlord Season 3. So it has been a long time in coming now, hasn't it? Now hopefully all the volume and all that stuff is fine, because it's a new... I had to update OBS, so things are kind of different and all the volume levels are kind of screwed up. But I kind of checked a little bit ahead of time that they should be fine. So hopefully you can still hear the episode well enough, even despite me talking over it. So, well, not over it, you know what I mean. So without further ado, let us just get on with the show proper. That is as to be expected, but it's actually interesting that interesting that Sebas actually understood immediately what Ainz was talking about, and it was actually pretty cool that Ainz. It is indeed interesting to control over more control. It's more interesting to control over people who are not selfless, but just in general that have desires, because desires make a person. So it's far more interesting in that manner. So it's, even though it's obvious that Sebas has one driving motive behind him, it's still good that he has that. It's characterization, to say the least. And I just generally like Sebas and Tuares' relationship just in general. It's kind of cute. And then we have someone with actually like some desires and more very selfish desires. It's quite a huge difference between the two of them, but that just makes it far more interesting, and it is certainly quite amusing, to say the least. Actually, rather mortifying now that you think about it. But when I think about it, but it's fine. It's fine. It's at the very least interesting, to say the least. I was actually informed that Evil Eye is apparently a vampire, so that makes things rather interesting, to say the least. And it is pretty reasonable that Entoma would also receive a reward, because considering that she was in quite grim danger, so yeah, it makes sense. Oh, and now I'm unfortunately going to have to mute this, because YouTube copyright system is a rather pain in the ass to deal with. So I'll just mute this. We will be watching this for the first time, however, so... Oh, those are probably new characters. Oh, and that character we saw just a glimpse of in the end of the last season. Okay, well, that opening was certainly fine enough, and it actually gave quite a good focus on a lot of the characters, so that certainly is pretty good. It generally gave a good focus on the characters, just in general, showing also some of the newer characters that will be probably introduced in the season. Maybe, probably not in the first episode or so, but later on in the season, just in general. But it also, well, talking about the opening itself, I'm actually... Overlord has this tendency to have more rock intros, which are complete openings rather, which are completely fine, and I generally do like rock, which is fine, and that's kind of a thrash metal style or genre as well, which is kind of nice actually. It's something that I personally like quite a bit, but it's... and it kind of fits if you kind of stretch the feeling of a little bit. It has a pretty good like antagonistic feeling to it, so that's certainly something that is rather fitting for the show. However, I just generally the singing is something that just doesn't fit quite well. But maybe that's just because I've grown more accustomed to hearing male voices during thrash metal, so it's that's some preference questions. Whatever, it's a fine enough opening, so yeah, let's move on. A ruler's melancholy. It's pretty good that at the very least Ainz is being like a he's being a benevolent ruler, so and he understands the needs of the needs of his subordinates. It's good that he is at the very least understanding that the subordinates' needs have to be fulfilled to be a complete ruler, and that's certainly something that has been reinforced a couple of times in the previous seasons as well, where Ainz has been giving rewards to people who have well done a service for him, so it makes sense. Also, a member of Pleiades, whose name I can't remember their names, but I like her quite a bit. I like her design quite a bit. It's gonna be really interesting if the season has quite a bit more focus on the Pleiades. So, yeah. Well, interesting that they are giving more attention to even the side servants. That's certainly something that I wasn't expecting, that this even such minor side characters would be getting even a little bit of screen time. It's kind of strange, actually, and not exactly off-putting, but well, unexpected to say the least. It's actually once again commenting on the fact that it's rather interesting that Ainz is actually more focused on the well-being of his subordinates like this, so that they are actually, he's worried of their health just in general. That's a really interesting factor that also makes him quite a good ruler just in general, which is really quite interesting. Also, what is just being said here, that there's something up with Lord Demiurge, which is I was informed that, or I was kind of alluded to the fact that Demiurge is actually another great important player in the whole grand scheme of things, and generally he's managing the Great Doom of Nazareth quite extensively, so I'm almost forgetting all of the names. It's... I lost my train of thought. It certainly is pretty interesting to have him be such a main player, but I just wonder how much of the well-being of the subordinates is because of Ainz or because of Demiurge. I wonder if Demiurge even shares a shred of sympathy for the subordinates, or whether their work mentality is because of Demiurge, actually. If there's any kind of hint to that. That is an interesting thought, to say the least. That's pretty excessive. The fact that it's a level 100, where level 100 is apparently the maximum level that you can get, and that's level 100 steed. That's really OP. Like, in D&D, the main role of cavalry is to bring the horses to the battle, because they are far more effective than the human soldiers riding them. It's actually kind of hilarious in that manner. And I doubt that, I think that this war bicorn can actually do quite a bit of damage, because, well, obviously, it's level 100. It could probably level entire villages on its own without a problem. It's amusing. Actually, I'm kind of surprised that they are actually just spending time off without a care in the world. That's actually rather surprising. But actually, it makes sense considering that Ainz gave an order to chill, so, you know, it makes sense. Oh, that's a pretty funny implication. Exactly. Considering how heavy the show eventually or sometimes gets, it's actually pretty amusing that how much slice of life things there are just in the show. And I like it. I definitely like it because it's very amusing in that matter. Yeah, it's amusing. Would it be possible for Hamusuke to actually learn martial arts? That would be pretty interesting for that huge hamster to actually... Yeah, I'm calling it a hamster. I can't remember the actual race. But it would be really amusing if actually I like pulled out a hammer strike. That'd be pretty entertaining to say the least. I do believe that there is some rather ulterior motives that, such as breeding a stronger skeleton, because that would make a lot of sense, you know, just getting stronger warriors. So, he certainly isn't very accustomed to ruling now, is he? It's actually kind of a humanizing scene to have him actually practice in front of a mirror ruling like this. It's rather entertaining, to be honest. He's taking notes. It it does make sense for him to prepare. Like, you can't make a good ruler out of nowhere just like without any practice. So it does make sense that he's actually trying to practice to be a ruler like this. So it's not that I'm faulting him, it's just that it's rather amusing. It makes complete sense, I would say. So yeah, it is hilarious, but it's logical at the same time. I am so glad that I am wearing headphones and nobody could hear that. Let's listen to the outro. Or I shall listen to it and you shall just sit here silently watching me judging. Albedo is always apparently the centerpiece for the openings. Endings, I mean. Which is certainly rather interesting. Well, apparently not the centerpiece this time round, but the starting piece. Which would make sense. Oh? Oh?
まあ彼は普段からすっぱだかですのでよろしければその変態みたいな言い方はよして
Okay. Very well, time for the outro. And yes, I'm doing it rather simply just by removing all of those this time. Well, it's pretty interesting that it started out with the third season started out with nothing more than just some lovely slice of life with the Floor Guardians and a little bit of the Pleiades, and I don't think the other maids are part of the Pleiades, which is just understandable, but it's rather interesting to see quite a bit more about just the thought process of Ainz, and just in general to see more about his modus operandi. So it's pretty cool to see like more about him just in general. So I certainly like that part of the episode quite a bit. I just generally liked the episode quite a bit. It was a really nice breather, just a good relaxing opening for the season. Now, I of course hope that we get to see more of the new characters and more intrigue and politics and tactics and strategy and all, you know, all the good things. of the other good things rather. But it was just in general a really kind of nice opening. Oh my god, it's already 35 minutes. It was just in general a nice opening. Now, not exactly the most exciting, just in general. However, because things have not changed, why fix something that isn't broken? Am I right? So it certainly makes quite a bit of sense for them to have a breather after the exciting start ending of the previous season, and considering that all of the main characters are already introduced, like Brain and Climb and that princess and that other prince, and I assume that was another prince, the one that was introduced in the ending of the last season, and all of the other characters. So it is just in general a fun enough episode. It's a fun episode, that's for sure. Um, and it has a lot of interesting implications, to say the least, especially with Albedo. But yeah, it has a lot of good insight to the way that Ainz wants to rule, even though it's nothing new and we already knew about that. But you know, it's not bad to reinforce things or reinforce ideas. So yeah, I just in general liked it quite a bit. Um, I also, one good aspect that I liked was that the lizard men were actually there with Hamsuke, with that hamster, just there in the practice arena, and that was actually a really kind of a nice little touch to have them even not participate, but be there and be there, well, maybe assisting him. Yeah, it was a nice little touch. I liked it quite a bit. I About the openings and endings, they are quite fine enough, even though we didn't get to see the ending in full. But the opening was kind of nice, although I did like the second season's opening quite a bit more. But you know, it's still fine. It, however, left quite a bit of intrigue about a lot of the new characters that will probably, hopefully, will be introduced in this season. Well, obviously they will be introduced in this season, otherwise they wouldn't put those in. So it will be really interesting to see what exactly those characters are, actually. Yes, that's about all I have to say. So for now, I thank you all very much for watching. I hope to see you in the future. Have a great day and stay awesome. Ganmu out. Thank you very much for watching.